This episode of Fuel for the Soul is powered by ASICS. Head over to asics.com and sign up for a one ASICS account. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you will receive 10% off your first purchase. You'll also gain access to exclusive colorways on asics.com, free standard shipping, special birthday month discounts, and more.
All right. Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Megan with Believe in the Run.
And this is Megan with Featherstone Nutrition.
AKA Feathers. And you know, guys, guess what? I was listening to a different podcast, and they had a good idea, and I wanted to throw it out for our audience. You want to hear it?
Sure.
All right. They said, record your question on your phone and then email it in. And then we could do the live audio. And here's why I think this would be genius. One, I want to hear their voices, so I kind of get a mental picture in my head. But two, you know how we're always guessing at people's names? Boom. We would know how to pronounce the name because I'd say, hey, introduce yourself, ask your question, and then say, thanks, first-time listener, first-time caller, or long-time listener.
Yeah, Spotify used to have an easy way for people to record their question, but it kind of like got lost in their updates.
They just disappeared.
We always at the end of every episode ask for people to email us their questions at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com, but you can absolutely
make a voice recording.
Make a voice memo on your phone or however you want to record it and email it to us there.
And then you can be on the show with us.
Yeah.
And then we'll answer your question. I'd be so excited for that. How about you, Feathers?
I'm all for that. I mean, I'm the one who goes through and picks the questions that we answer. So I'm just going to throw out there that like the first 3 or 4 people that do it, regardless of the question, we're going to play it and we're going to answer it.
Yeah, you can even ask
go.
personal questions. You could ask personal questions.
Sometimes we get some really interesting questions.
Feathers.
So this could be good.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a personal question for Feathers. I couldn't think of one that I don't already know the answer to.
Well, you never
Because
know.
we're best friends.
It's the ball of secrets over
here.
here.
Hey, by the way, our sponsor is ASICS. Do you see all my fresh
Bandit gear.
Bandit gear.
So
the
slick.
ASICS Bandit
Collab.
Collection.
And then these shoes.
Yeah.
They really did a nice job with this collab. I can't even hate on this. This is like, it's beautiful. I love the shoe. It looks so much better than it did in the plum color. It's got like a little bit different styling. I really like it.
Yeah.
And that's not an ad, even though they are the sponsor. But I just happened to be doing an unboxing and wearing all this stuff.
Love it. Looking slick over there.
Thank you. I've been trying.
So yeah, this is Fuel for the Soul. I don't even think we got there. The podcast where we chat all things hydration and nutrition and how it affects performance. And today we are going to answer a bunch of listener questions. Hopefully next time we are hearing your voices as well. But today we will just be reading the questions. And before we get to our first one, let's talk about our sponsor, Runway.
Ooh.
We just got a big
Giant box
of Runway goods.
I contacted him. I said, hey, Robbie and I are both doing the weightlifting thing.
Uh-huh.
And Robbie's trying to bulk up, he's trying to get thick.
Swole.
Yeah. And so I was like, hey, we need more protein with the creatine in it.
Yeah.
Are you guys taking creatine? Meg won't take creatine.
I haven't been.
Why not?
I don't know. It just feels like I don't really need it.
They
Maybe
say that
I
it
do.
benefits women more than it benefits men.
Yeah. Every time Thomas takes his protein and creatine, he goes, hey, do you know what? I read that creatine benefits women more than benefits men. And I'm like, great. Enjoy your creatine.
Meanwhile, I'm looking
Every
svelte.
day.
Yeah.
I love it.
I did think of you when I was in Kenya because I looked at the athletes' plates. First off, they must have thought I was anorexic because I would take like a regular size, what I would consider a regular size helping of things. Mm-hmm. And these people that are rails were taking like, ugali is kind of like, it's almost like grits, but like a little drier than grits. They were taking massive, like almost loaf of bread size servings of those with their, so basically they would take that for their carbs. They had another bread that was like kind of like a naan, but it was like a flatbread. Again, carbs. And then like a greens. And then like for dinner, we had one night it was like scrambled eggs and peppers and, greens and again, the ugali, that's on like every meal. So
Well, that's what they say. They've done research studies looking at the difference of nutritional intakes of different marathon runners all over the world. And it's like Kenya was the highest in carbohydrates. It was like 85 to 90% of their diet was carbs. So you saw that firsthand.
who was that guy who said don't eat carbs? Mouth
Half the
Bafatone
internet.
or something?
Oh,
Yeah.
Phil.
I mean, they gotta, like, this to me, I'm like, I'm watching the fastest people on the planet and they're living off carbs. So
Right.
I don't know. I think it's great maybe if you're, a bro working at the gym and you just want to eat meat all day.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you want to run fast, it looks like carbs are the way to get there.
Yeah, I think the problem in the U.S. is it's like carbs plus everything else, right? Like we just
That's
have
exactly
a surplus of options, and that's just what they have, and they eat what they need, and there's not a bunch of eating for pleasure or excess. Not knocking any of that, but it's just a very different culture around food.
A little bit of insight there on the
I like it.
Kenyan diet.
You totally derailed our Runway sponsor spot, but that's okay.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
So we know they have the protein with collagen. We also know they have the foundational product, which has, they have
Wait, creatine.
creatine. Thank you. The protein with creatine. And then they have the Runway foundation product that has the collagen in it, which we've talked a lot about collagen and the benefits for soft tissues and ligaments and tendons, but we've never actually talked about the benefits to bones. So collagen is the structural matrix in bones as well. So there is some really good research on it to show that not only does it help keep our bones stronger, but it may help reduce bone loss as we get older. So we've talked about bone injuries on here and also the incidence of osteopenia in a lot of female runners, especially as they hit that perimenopausal stage and they have some genetic predisposition to it. So there is some really good research, not just for soft tissue, but also for bone health for taking collagen. So the Runway foundation product would support that.
So but I know we got to get to the stuff, but I just want to say, you guys had to do a photo shoot. How was it being celebrity stars on a photo set?
I have to
It
be
was
honest.
fine.
We were both really nervous.
Yeah. My heart rate, according to my Oura ring, was I was suffering and stressing out.
She
my
was like in
whole
this
life.
stressed, zone the whole time during it. Yeah, we.
I
looked at
think
our
that's hilarious.
auras
Because
everywhere.
like when we get on a treadmill to do testing, my heart blows up.
Yeah.
Megan's calm as a cucumber. Like if you put me in front of that camera thing, I'd be fine. I'd be like relaxed. But to know that that's your kryptonite, that's crazy.
Once we got started, it was so chill and enjoyable and fine. They did some video stuff. They did some, standing still photo shoots, some running outdoors photo shoots.
Will you be doing more photo shoots?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that was primarily to capture content for the series.
Okay. What's the next stop?
But the ASICS team and Flow Creative team, I have to give them props for making it like as easy and comfortable as it possibly could be, given that we were like, this is our first photo shoot ever.
Yeah. I know Flow State Creative was so kind. He kept going, yeah, great job. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Crushing it. Killing it. And we're like, made us feel like, I'm sure behind the camera, they were like, oh, shoot, we got to try to pump these women up.
Yeah.
That sounds
but
like
it
Austin
worked.
Powers. Or what? Yeah. It's like, you're a monkey.
Yeah. I would have. Whatever you say.
What's the next stop?
Yeah, so, well, by the time this comes out, Boston will have happened, but we are doing a fun stop there with Emily Saul, and she's going to do like a pre-marathon, what's the word I'm
Meditation?
looking for? Like meditation.
Mindfulness.
Meditation. Mindfulness, yeah.
Yeah.
Calm the F down.
Yeah. And so the unique
Yeah.
thing about this event series is every stop is a little bit different. So we're going to talk about different things. We'll have a run component. Everything will be a little different. So the next stop will be Ridgefield on May 8th, and then Nashville, May 17th, and then Mill City on May 29th.
What if I come to one of your events, but for some reason I forgot my socks and I want to run with you guys?
Yeah, so all of these stops also have really fun giveaways. One of them being some cool crew socks from ASICS. I think we're going to start giving out charms.
Shoe charms.
We didn't have them at the first stop, but we should have those in the future stops, right?
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know.
what I'm
If there's a Believe in the Run charm, I'd love to have one.
It's a shoe charm.
I know.
There it is.
I'd love to have one. Even though I don't normally run with charms on my shoe.
I know
don't either,
somebody that could get
but now's
that
the
for you.
time.
You know somebody?
Yeah, she's sitting right next to you.
All right. So I've derailed this quite a bit. So should I let you get back to the regularly scheduled program?
All right, let's get into these questions. The first one is from Sue A. She said, I stumbled upon your podcast a few months ago and have been addicted ever since. I look forward to, quote, hanging out with my podcast friends on the regular. In the past episode, you mentioned that the protein in collagen powder is different and as such should not count towards our protein targets for fueling and recovery. I can't remember exactly why, but it had something to do with how it triggers muscle recovery. So my question is about protein chips. Are those a good source of protein for recovery? I don't like all protein chips, but I have discovered that Quest protein chips are like crack, especially the taco loaded flavor. With 19 grams of protein, it seems like a good way to hit that extra protein before bed. That fourth dose you've discussed. Am I wasting my time here, or can protein chips count towards my daily protein goals? I also incorporate weightlifting once or twice a week, so I'm looking for different ways to get enough without always resorting to protein shakes for the non-meal doses.
This is a great question.
I've never heard of protein chips.
Feathers loves crack. So you can tell us if this is as good as crack.
What are protein chips?
Oh my gosh, you've never seen protein chips at like Target or any of the stores? No? Yeah.
We don't let Meg out much.
She like beelines for exactly the thing she needs and only gets them.
Yeah. Honestly, she does grocery delivery, so she's never seen inside.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, fair. So you don't see the new products. See, this is why I love to go grocery shopping, because I need to see the new products and check things out. And this is why I waste too much time and money at the grocery store. So I thought this was a good question because a few months ago, we answered somebody's question on the protein Pop-Tarts. So I think this is just a little bit of a continuation of that. Protein is just such a hot topic right now, which again, I was actually thinking about this when Thomas was talking about Kenya and there was no protein mentioned on their plates. Maybe the eggs that one night.
Eggs, yeah.
Yeah. In the United States, like protein is really having a moment, and rightfully so. As I can tell, Sue is an avid listener. She's talking about doses of protein, which is straight out of, my recommendations here, and a fourth dose and all this kind of stuff. So I know she's been listening a lot. And I think what she was getting at the beginning is the quality of our protein matters if it's going to stimulate our muscles to recover. So something like collagen, like we've talked about, is great for soft tissues and great for bone health. But not necessarily for triggering muscle recovery. So what I decided to do was to look up the most popular protein chips and see, A, what the nutrition facts were. Like, is it a bunch of garbage or is it actually like a decent amount of protein? And then B, what's the protein source in some of these protein chips to see if it would actually work as her quote unquote fourth dose of protein. So that was kind of my investigation here. I think I need to buy them all and do like a blind taste test or something on them because I think that would be funny. So overall, looking at all the different protein chip brands that are on the market, they're obviously much higher in protein than chips, but they're also a lot lower in carbs. So it's definitely just like a protein source. There was like anywhere from 5 to 8 grams of carbs in a bag of these protein chips. I was actually really shocked that a lot of them were very, very similar in makeup, which you don't see that like in a protein bar, right? You're going to see like stats all over the place as far as nutrition goes. But most of these for an ounce were around 150 calories and had anywhere from like 15 to 18 grams of protein in most of these. I looked at the Quest, which is what she was talking about. So specifically, the Quest is a combination of a milk protein isolate and a whey protein isolate. So that would be considered a quote unquote high quality protein that would work for recovering muscles. So if she chooses to eat these protein chips as part of her plan, I mean, I think that's fine. They're obviously incredibly highly processed. They're literally turning a protein powder into a chip. So there's a lot of other ingredients and stuff in there too. But again, that's totally up to each person if that's something they're interested in. They also, Legendary, which was the same brand that made those Pop-Tarts, the protein Pop-Tarts, they also make some very similar. Again, milk protein isolate, whey protein isolate, Pure Protein made them, which they're a protein bar brand from like the 90s. So they're obviously hopping on this trend as well. Wholesome Provisions was a brand I'd never heard of. And they also used a combination of like soy and whey protein. And then the one that's a little different, but I think still falls in this bucket, are the Wild chips. Have you guys seen these? They're actually made from chicken.
Megan just said she'd never seen any protein chips.
Yeah, I'm obviously
Not those either.
Googling all of this now. Though.
Are you talking about chicken
Yeah.
chips?
They're literally made from chicken. I have some clients who've tried them, so they were kind of on my radar. They have them at Costco, and I've seen them, at some other stores as well. But they're literally like a fried, very thin slice of chicken. I have not tried them. They're really high in fat, which makes me a little nervous. But yeah, that's an option too.
Yeah, I'm
Poor
out.
chickens, man.
I'm out for
We
all
found
of this.
every possible way to
I
put
know.
them in our mouth.
I don't even like chips that much, let alone these seem
Yeah.
crazy.
No, I love chips.
Yeah, you would probably love this.
I
Yeah.
love chips.
Yeah.
But no, I don't want a protein chip. I want a
Yeah.
greasy potato chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the
Sloan and I
Zapp's.
tried the Quest chips one time. I think they were supposed to be like a Dorito. They weren't a Dorito in my eyes. They were edible, but nothing that they're expensive too. It was nothing I would spend my money on again, but she wanted to try them, so we did.
But so if Sue is using this like at the end of the night when she wants that 4th dose, is there anything wrong with that?
I don't think so. The only thing is it's probably not quite enough protein to stimulate our muscles to recover, right? Usually it's like a
What if you
minimum
ate
of
the
20
whole bag?
grams. What if you ate 2 bags? Then maybe. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, I don't think this should be like a staple or a sole source of our
Yeah.
protein, but it certainly, to answer her question, it could count towards her protein
Okay.
for the day. Yeah.
So what, like, again, maybe let's give some alternatives that might be better. Last night, because Megan mentioned protein before bed, I grabbed a yogurt and, pretty much mixed in some strawberry jam in that because like plain yogurt and ate that. So that's kind of like, it satisfies two things because really I'd really like to be eating ice cream, but that kind of fits the bill. And what are some other things that are great 4th round protein, like when you're snacking?
Yeah, last night I had some of those like rice almond crackers with a few cheese sticks. I was like, I was hungry before bed. And I was like, oh, that works. I really like the light cheese sticks from Aldi's. They're the best texture. They're a little higher in protein. And when you eat 3 of them in a sitting to get 20 grams of protein, I prefer the light ones just so it's not too much saturated fat for my heart. But that would be something. Cottage cheese is something they've actually researched a lot because the type of protein in it is a slower digesting protein. So that's like a very solid recommendation before bed. But I'm with you. I need to put something in there too, like jam or something to kind of jazz it up.
All right, so plenty of options, Sue, but the chips are okay if that's what you like. Okay, this next question is from Julie Phillips.
What's up, Julie?
She said, I'm a federal employee recently forced back into working full-time from the office. I've been either hybrid or fully remote for years and always had flexibility for timing runs, workouts, strength training, etc. Now with having to be in the office full-time plus a commute of over an hour each way, I've had to make some changes to my training schedule. I'm now stacking my recovery runs and strength training after work a couple days a week with a 1-hour recovery run and 20-ish minutes of strength training. I know from this podcast that it's ideal to get protein within 30 to 60 minutes of finishing a workout. Should that clock start after I finish the recovery run or after the strength training? I normally eat dinner with protein after I get home from the gym, but is that too late after finishing the run? That's a good question.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? Is that the commutes now dropping off the boys from school have been horrendous. And I'm like, I was thinking about today, it's probably all these people
are
going back
Mm-hmm.
into the office, jamming up the thing. So
Yeah.
as much as, jamming it up.
That's why I wanted to answer this because I have quite a few clients that are also falling into this new structure of work. And so I think it's probably more common than the 3 of us who work from home can actually relate to. But I really honestly can't imagine having to go back with that kind of commute. Like that just has to totally rock somebody's world and work-life
Yeah.
balance and stuff. So
We hear Jared crying
feeling
about
for
it.
Julie. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But to answer her question, there's a ton of research on nutrient timing and recovery windows and all that kind of stuff. But I actually wanted to dive into some newer research to help answer this question because I haven't dove into what has changed over the last year or two when it comes to all of this. So I think first and foremost, the biggest thing is going to just be making sure that when she's going back to this at work schedule, that she's packing the right foods or has the right access to still crushing her protein intake 3 discrete times per day. I think that still remains the most important thing, regardless of timing, is just making sure that she's keeping that solid structure of her nutrition, even when she's back in the office, which might mean packing more things or planning ahead a little bit on the weekends to make sure you have the foods to throw together. Because I can imagine being gone that long and having that commute, like, easy thing to fall to the wayside when things gets crazy is probably grabbing the nutrition you need for the day. So I think that's probably first and foremost. And when you look at the research, that is one of the first recommendations, is making sure that your total daily intake of protein is adequate and that ideally it's spaced 3 to 4 hours apart throughout the day. So that would be like the first recommendation for her. And then the second one is, when we really look at when we need to eat protein to maximally stimulate our muscles to recover, the research shows it's anywhere from immediately to 2 hours post-workout. So that gives her a wiggle room, right? So there isn't a ton of research on, like, what if I do back-to-back exercise? In my mind, if they really are pretty back-to-back, I would just take that as a full session. So if it's an hour run and a half-hour lift, she's exercised for 90 minutes. So then she has that immediately to 2 hours after that 90 minutes to recover and to get that protein in, which it certainly sounds like dinner is going to fall in there pretty easily.
Yeah.
The only time I would pause is sometimes I have people that run, wait a half hour, 45 minutes, lift, and then eat. So that's like prolonging that a little bit more. So if that's the case for her, if there's like some downtime between the lift, or if it ends up being a really big run plus a longer lift, I would really try to get that recovery protein in ASAP versus pushing it out to that 2 hours.
And let's say the run in the evening, I know she mentioned these are like recovery runs, but if you had, like you mentioned, a harder workout and then some time, it's protein that's more important between the lifting versus carbs.
Right.
Okay.
And the interesting, obviously we don't want to like slug a protein shake and go run because it's not going to empty from our stomach very well. But when it comes to lifting, the research around there is we need adequate protein around that lift. So like someone could drink a protein shake between a run and a lift, and that would still count as their recovery, if that makes sense. So probably not as applicable to her since she's eating dinner, but like for someone else that might be trying to squish this in the middle of the day, that would work.
All right, quick question. Can you just do your protein before your lift, even if you haven't run? Like, does it matter? Like, if you want to have protein for your lift, can you just down a protein? Because a lot of times I'll lift after work, and I'm at that point I need a snack. I'm a little bit hungry. So I'm like, is a protein shake the ideal pre-workout, and then it's in my system while I'm working out?
You could. Yeah, they've done research on that. They've done it before, they've done it during, they've done it after, and all of it seems to still have the same effect as far as muscle recovery. The only thing would be is if you really are hungry, I wonder if your blood sugar is dropping a little and we would need some carbs. So like maybe it would be a protein shake plus a piece of fruit on the side or something like that beforehand.
I'll throw a graham cracker in the shake.
Even better. In the shake. I love it. In the chocolate shake.
Chocolate graham cracker shake? Yeah. Nice.
Try that, Runway.
It's gonna get all crumbly and
That's what I
gross
like.
inside.
You
I
can
don't
chew
like
your
that.
shake as it goes down.
Oh my gosh, Sloan brought home a library book that was a recipe book while we were gone last week, Meg. So she had it ready, and she had a bookmark in one of the recipes that we had to make because it had graham crackers in it. It was so cute. So on Sunday, we had to make this. So it was like a graham cracker crust with like a chocolate fudgy center, and then marshmallows, peanuts, and more graham crackers on top. I was like, this is really something. But
is that a post-workout or pre-workout?
It's a bedtime snack.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's answer Krista G's question. She said, I was listening to the latest and greatest yesterday on my way home from work, and I was surprised to hear you talking about the cost of gels. You mentioned the goo gels, which I have to agree with Megan on the bad consistency. Yes. Have gone to $2 a gel to compete with Martin's $2.50 gel cost. Wow, I'm currently paying approximately $4.33 a Morton and would love to know where I can find them at the above mentioned price.
So I did some research. We might have lied.
Out of tune.
We might have lied a little.
Our bad.
What we meant was if you eat half of one, it's $2.
I was like, poor Krista, we gotta write this wrong. No, you know what I think? I think it was my fault because when we were talking about the cost, I just Googled them quickly on the feed, and I think I did the math on the Morton bars, which are cheaper than the gels, because I was like, how did I come up with $250? So on the feed, if you buy them,
How much are the bars?
It was $36 for a 12 pack of the bars and 52 for the gels. I don't quote me. Obviously, I'm not.
So
good
it's
at
$3
this
a
whole
bar.
thing. Maybe I don't know.
12 goes
Again,
into 36 three
Sure.
times.
yeah. So if you buy a 12 pack, it's obviously going to be cheaper. So it would be like $3.75 per gel. But if you're getting them through the feed, most people can get a $20 credit. So like if you save that and use it quarterly for your Mortons, then you get them for $2.10 per gel. So sometimes that little credit helps, but I think the $4.33 that she's paying is probably one at a time is my guess. So, maybe buy in bulk.
Yeah. That's $4.33.
The only problem with buying in bulk,
crazy.
you got to time it just right because they do expire. So
That's
if you're going to
on
buy
to the
a
next
big
question.
box. Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
It sure is. You guys are just bump setting it up.
All right. Let's answer Courtney Krugel's question. What happens when gels do expire? Whether I'm overzealous on a sale or I'm taking a break from running, I do feel like I always have some on their way out. Are they bad to use? Do I toss them, use them? Carbs don't disintegrate, but can they cause GI distress?
I'll tell you what's weird about these.
I've rolled the dice with Morton's a lot.
Yeah, but here I've had a bad experience with the Morton one because what happens is the gel breaks down. So the thing that's helping you take in those carbs without upsetting your stomach
Is no longer.
breaks down. So that's where you get that little juicy part in the pack when it gets old.
No.
Yeah.
Never done that.
Gosh.
And I don't know if it upset my stomach, but the texture going down, that kind of both lumpy
Was enough.
and liquidy together, just was not a good move for me while I was running. I just didn't like it. So now I make sure I get a freshie.
Freshy fresh. I like that. Yeah, I do. I'm sitting on about 20 Mortons that had a Best By date of January of this year because, those were supposed to be used in the fall and now. And they still seem okay. So let's talk through this. How do we know if a gel is still good? The biggest thing is gels don't have expiration dates on them. It's actually a Best By date, right? So that doesn't mean that you can't use it past that Best By date. It's just Best By, right? It speaks for itself. So I had to dig into this a little bit more. And it's true. Like if you look at your Morton gels, there's 2 capital B's and then a date. So it said BB : 2025 January 14 is what all of mine said. So technically we're supposed to consume them by then, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily harmful after that. So the next question would be like, how the heck do I know then if it is harmful or not? And I know we've talked about this on here before. Carbohydrates can ferment, right? If we think about alcohol, we're fermenting carbohydrates and turning them into alcohol, and they produce gas when they ferment, right? So if a gel package gets puffy, that probably means there's some fermentation going on in there. So that's where I would probably say, let's not consume those. Again, I looked through all of mine, the regular Mortons and the caffeine, and none of them are puffy. They're still super, super flat. So you better believe when I need those again, if they're still flat, I'm going to take them, like there's no sign unless they taste kind of funny. So those would be the things you would look for.
Have you had any get puffy? Like, have you seen them do that?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
I have. And I've never taken them because it makes me nervous. But the other, that kind of leads into how you store it is going to be a piece of that. So mine are stored in my office, which is like off the side of our house. So it gets very, very cold. So I'm pretty sure they've stayed pretty temperate, right? But I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll drive somewhere to run, leave an old gel I didn't take in my car. So if it's getting hot in your car or it's getting hot in your garage, that's going to ferment it quicker. So how you've stored the gels is probably also going to be how good they are past that Best By date. But then also, of course, like we said, if they get puffy, if there's a change in the texture, like Thomas was just describing, if they taste different, if they smell different, like absolutely get rid of them. And then I would probably, we've said this before too, not use those for a goal race, like maybe just in training, get some new freshies for the goal race.
So sometimes Megan will take like either on a trip or on a run, she'll bring like Morton in a Ziploc bag, and then that one gets tossed in the top of the drawer and it just sits there forever. And or the ones that I like are the ones that you can tell she's run with it because the package is all crinkled up. And those somehow never get.
No, I've been reusing them.
You do get in
Yeah.
there? All right.
Yeah. I'll give you that. Like, I almost always take an extra gel with me just in case.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, that one always ends up looking a little rough a little sooner than the others.
Sometimes I do leave it, like, especially if it's race day and it's one that's like been on a training run, not used. I'm like, that one doesn't feel good enough for
Not
race
today.
day.
I need fresh.
Yeah.
I want a pretty one for race day.
That I'm going to just
love
shove
it.
in my face running as fast as I can.
I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
Okay. Let's answer another question here. This is from Becca Ramirez. She said, been listening for about a year, and thanks to you, I've been adding fueling during my long runs. Just heard your discussion about country time lemonade, and so I've got to run my question by you. In the long run, I eat at Trader Joe's blueberry bars. One bar has 140 calories and 20.
Is that what Henry was eating?
Yeah, but the apple ones.
Right, but the same,
Yeah.
like cereal bars. Okay.
One bar has 140 calories and 27 grams of carbs. I take a bite at least every 2 miles. One bar is about 4 bites.
Is she like 8?
I tolerated 2 full bars during a half marathon very well. I'm running my first marathon, Chicago, this year. Should I keep trying more calorie, carb, sugar dense foods? Keep in mind I'm aiming for a sub 430. So while I'm burning calories, do I need to be aiming for the carb replacement of someone going for a sub 3-hour marathon? That's what it feels like. A lot of information out there feels aimed toward.
Can I hit her up on this one?
Yeah, go for it.
Look, I'm kidding about you being a grade school person eating your cereal bars, but you're out there. Like, that's the thing. Meg, they're done under 3 hours. So, they don't need as much energy. But you're going to be out there for a while. You need to fuel that. And it's like you're almost twice as long. So think about it. You almost need to eat twice as many calories to sustain your run. Am I right, doctor?
Yes, there is something to that. And that's why I wanted to, for 2 reasons I was like, we have to answer this question. One was because I think there's some misconceptions that she is bringing light to, that she's probably not the only one who thinks about it, right? Which is, I don't need as much fuel because I am not running as fast, right? So we'll talk about that. And then 2, this is her first marathon. And we need to look at the fueling of this very, very different than she has for her half. So I want to make sure she starts now so that she has a good fueling plan by Chicago, because there's no chance that she's going to finish without bonking, only eating granola bars out there. Like, we need some faster fuel. We need more carbs than that. So I wanted to talk through both those things. But first and foremost, like you're saying, is the time on feet. So when we look at how much nutrition do we need as runners for any distance, right? The 2 factors that are the most important that determine how much nutrition we need is how long we're out there, so duration, and then intensity, which we could probably think of as like heart rate, right? Or perceived exertion. So someone running a 4:30 marathon, for some people, that could be their very high end intensity, like very high heart rate, zone 3, 4, or it could be somebody that's in zone 2, party pacing it, right? So that's the biggest thing to look at, is like, when she is aiming for that 4:30, is she at the top of her fitness level for the marathon? And if so, she needs to fuel that just the same as somebody that's trying to break 3 hours. I think we have this perception of like, I'm not as fast, I don't need as much fuel. But that has nothing to do with it. It has to do with how hard our personal body is working. And all of our bodies are working at different efforts or different paces. So kind of forget what's happening with everybody else, Becca, and just think about, where is my intensity when I'm doing those runs? And if it's high, right? If you're like, there's no chance I could run faster than this, right? Like, this is the top of my fitness level for this distance. We need to make sure we're fueling like we mean it out there, and not comparing ourselves to other people.
I do think that's a very important point, not just for nutrition, but just for running in general, to cover that's where heart rate and power meters and stuff like that come into play. Just because you're not running a 5-minute mile doesn't mean that your heart rate and that your power output isn't the same as someone running a 5-minute mile.
Right.
You're doing where your fitness is. And I think we get caught up in the only measurement being the time on the course or the time on the clock, when physiologically there's a lot more going on. So we got to get that chip off our shoulder and just relax and make sure that we're fueling to have a good race that we feel good about, and that when you're done, your body isn't wrecked.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So how much does she need? So she right now, it sounds like she's taking this 27-gram carb bar twice during a half. So she's probably around 25 grams of carbs an hour, I would guess, just based on her projected marathon time. So when we're thinking about being on our feet for 4.5 hours out there, the recommended amount of carbs per hour is like 40 to 60 grams of carbs per hour, especially for somebody just starting to fuel. Maybe some of us fuel even more than that, but like first time marathoner, that's probably where I would try to get her to land, is in that 40 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. So that would be 2 fruit bars an hour if she wants to stick only with those, which I can't imagine, right? What would that be? 9 of those fruit bars out there? First of all, those are going to crumble. Second of all, that's a lot of chewing and a lot of fluid to try to get that cleared down your throat. So I would encourage her to look into adding something in or totally switching, right? So trying some different gels, maybe a carbohydrate rich liquid, some chews.
She might like them scratch
else.
grape jelly ones.
Yeah,
those,
the chews.
Yeah,
those
I agree.
Those scratch jelly grape ones. I mean, that's kind of like eating a bar without having the carb
That's
stuff
fair.
around it.
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah. Or the Bonk Breakers makes the blue raspberry ones if she wants to stick to like the
there you
blueberry.
go.
And you'll
blue
get that
raspberry,
sodium, in there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would highly, highly, highly encourage you, Becca, to expand what you can fuel with for the marathon, because I think you'll need it.
But if you are going to Trader Joe's, pick me up some of their dill pickles. I love them.
And pepita salsa.
Pepita
Oh,
salsa.
so good.
It's the
and
best.
They're everything bagel seasoning. So yeah, hook us up.
Their baked Cheetos are so good if you haven't
Baked
tried those.
Cheetos? I haven't had
yeah.
those. But someone
So
had the
good.
peanut butter puffs, and those were
That
good.
was me.
Oh, that was you?
That was me. That was your wife.
Oh, I like those.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
I
I
love
spend a lot of time with other people.
Fair. Fair.
That's not weird.
Yeah, in Kenya. I thought maybe someone in Kenya had them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's answer one final question here. This is from Hallie King. She said, my question is, all of my training
Are you
this
sure it's
winter...
not Haley King?
Could be Haley, now that I read that. All of my training this winter was in sub 45 degree weather. Unfortunately, race day started in the 60s and made it to almost 70.
You're done.
Since I didn't have warm weather to tinker with my sodium intake on long runs, I was totally winging it on race day. I added some extra sodium, 1 element pack split between my 3 handhelds that were filled with scratch, hoping it would help with the extra fluid NA loss. Unfortunately, I think I got it too salty and couldn't stomach the liquids. I only got about 28 ounces in during the entire marathon. I was able to hold my pace and finish strong, but after the race, I had some pretty uncomfortable abdominal cramping and a little blood in my stool the rest of the day, which completely resolved the day after the race. So, 1, how do you scale up on sodium for race day if you aren't able to practice in race day conditions? And 2, did my bowel lining die and slough off?
I got to give her off the bat. Let's give her a round of applause because training in sub 45 and then hitting a 60 to 70 degree race day. She's probably in Miami, but
And she said she held paces.
and held her paces. So like that's badass because I will tell you this: I fall apart and start crying right at the
Right.
start line. Yeah, but that's impressive.
She did the B&A race. Isn't that near you guys?
Oh, that's what I did. I
Yeah.
did the half.
So I think
Wait,
it was
is that
one.
what she said?
It
Oh,
was
that
a little
wasn't
earlier in
60,
the email.
70, was it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really bad. I was doing
Yeah.
the warm up and like running a 9-minute mile and was like soaked.
I thought for some reason it turned out cooler that day.
It weirdly got cooler and then warmed up again. Like in the middle of the race was the coolest part for the half, and then it got warm again.
Yeah.
Did you win that?
So weird. No.
Did you win that? Casual. I'm assuming she did the full. Yeah. So first of all, I was like, I know it'll make Meg uncomfortable to have to say some of these things, so we should definitely. I'm kidding.
Was it the
Blood,
in the stool or
bowels.
the bowel? Yeah.
Both. It was all of it, but I got it out. It's okay.
You did. Kudos. So first and foremost, this sounds like dehydration, right? So it might not just be the sodium intake. It could have, like she said, she was having trouble getting the fluids down. And if someone is super sweaty, like for me in that weather, 28 ounces would not have cut it for me either, so it could have just been dehydration. So kind of taking a backwards step, they've done a ton of research looking at our GI function when we're running, period, and then when we're running in the heat. So we know that when we're running, our blood volume is shifted away from our intestines up to decreased by 80%. So we have like 20% of the normal blood flow going to our intestines that we would when we're running. And what insults that even more is dehydration, right? Because we're prioritizing the fluid to go to our working muscles and cool our bodies off a little bit. So we do see that when someone gets dehydrated, they have greater damage to their intestines while they're running. So that's absolutely right what happened here. And then she said it resolved the next day. So, no, your entire bowel lining did not die and slough off. But we do have research to show that it does injure temporarily our GI tract. So they actually did a study 2 years ago at the Boston Marathon looking at exactly this. I think we've talked about it on here before. And they found that the intestinal cell injury and GI symptoms decreased after the marathon finish into the next 3 days, so that it will improve, right? A healthy person will heal any of that damage to our intestines, but that's exactly what we're noticing, what you're feeling. If somebody has GI issues during a race when they get too dehydrated, that's the exact same thing, right? Some of that damage to our intestines can actually encourage our GI tract to be like, forget this, and try to let go of everything. So, I think without a doubt, what she was experiencing was related to dehydration, which is 2 factors, right? It's not just the sodium, but it's also the total fluid amount.
So in summary, marathons are a pain in the ass.
Literally.
And there's nothing immediately afterwards she could do to rehydrate. Like, obviously, I'm sure she's drinking water, but if you've already lost it out there, you're kind of, that's what it is.
Yeah, but recovery, you want to replenish your fluids as quickly as possible, and milk won't do that. So you got to have milk. You can rehydrate with milk.
Why'd you bring up milk?
Yeah,
I don't know. I just thought that would be a weird thing to down after.
They always have chocolate milk at the finish.
Yeah. I was going to say, a lot of marathons have chocolate milk.
That's true, for the protein.
Yeah.
They actually drink up on that milk.
Yeah. No, it's so funny you say that, because they did a study where they gave people all different types of fluids to see what rehydrated them the fastest. So no shock, something that was similar in electrolytes to like a Pedialyte. They call it like an oral rehydration system, right? But like that, a higher sodium, carbs, that kind of stuff, that rehydrated people the fastest, because we know we need sodium and sugar to absorb that fluid and get it to the right places the fastest. But one of the next was milk, because it has the sodium and the carbs in it. So actually, I can't imagine drinking. I've never in my life if I drank milk after a run, but.
What if it was a White Russian?
Oh, I've never been into those. You like those?
No, I'm not a White Russian guy.
Okay. I think that does it for this week. As we mentioned in the top of this show, if you have a question that we haven't answered, you can send us an email at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com. But we'd love it if you recorded your beautiful voice asking this question.
And you could pronounce your name, Howley.
Yeah. And then we won't, and by we, I mean I won't totally mess up your name in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. I'll drop the carrots and the peas, so peas and carrots.
Bye.